Hey guys, it's Rodimus Primal. I'm back with another video, and today I'm going to give you guys my review for Spider-Man Far From Home. I'm going to give you the good, the bad, the ugly, and what I thought about it. So sit back, relax, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and let's transform and roll out. Okay, so what I'm going to do with this review is a little bit different. Normally, with a lot of these reviews, I normally try not to do very many spoilers, and then I'll do another video with a spoiler. But this one I'm going to do is I'm going to try and give you guys my thoughts, try to condense them down into what I thought about the movie, and then I'm going to dive into spoilers. And the reason why is because it's really hard to not, give you guys the information without giving you guys too many spoilers. It's kind of really difficult. This movie does take place after Avengers Endgame, so if you've not seen Avengers Endgame, this is going to be very spoiler heavy, which of course, if you've seen the trailers, then of course you probably already know this, but without diving too much into it, there is a major thing that happens in Avengers Endgame that reels on the events that take place in Spider-Man Far From Home. This, of course, starts off with the events that take place after it, and Spider-Man trying to be Spider-Man after those events have occurred. And he meets up with what you've seen in the trailers, is Jake Gyllenhaal's character, and it turns out to be a interesting turn of events. It's a very predictable story. I enjoyed quite a bit of it. There were certain things that I could say that I didn't care for, and that has a lot to do with Spider-Man Homecoming and the decisions that were made in that movie. And this is kind of like the after effects of that in a way. But also, the other thing that happened, a couple things that ended up happening in this movie, especially with some of the end credit sequences, that make me really not excited to see where they go next with the MCU. And that was something, if you guys saw my Avengers Endgame review, I said I was done with the MCU, and the reason why is because Endgame felt like closure. It felt like the MCU came to an end with Avengers Endgame. And here, Spider-Man Far From Home is trying to take that next step while putting on an end cap piece. This is kind of like the epilogue to Avengers Endgame, and in the meantime it's trying to set the door up for what's going to happen next, and I don't know if I'm too excited about it. And the reason why is because I was a heavy Spider-Man comics reader from the late 80s. I read from when he got married. I read when he fought Venom, and he fought Harry as the Green Goblin. And I remember when, Ben Reilly was, he was turned out to be he was the real one, then it turns out he was the fake one, and then Norman Osborn returned, and all these events unfolded, and then in Civil War, Spider-Man unmasked to the world because they do the whole Superhuman Registration Act, and that causes major events that occur that ended up having to undo all of the times that they literally reset the button and the clock for Spider-Man and said pretty much all of the things that you read as Spider-Man didn't happen, and we're okay with that. We're okay with the rest of the Marvel Comics universe still being okay, but there's a sliver of time that no longer occurred in the comic books, and that was you literally undone everything that I enjoyed as far as Spider-Man comics up until the event of Civil War when he unmasked. So, this movie feels like there are certain things that ended up happening within Civil War in the Spider-Man, in the MCU, that have now led to this Spider-Man reaching a point where I'm like, I like this Spider-Man, and I enjoy the story. It was a fun movie, but still not. It doesn't feel like this is the Spider-Man that I'm expecting to see out of the movie. There were certain things and elements that make Spider-Man Spider-Man that I feel have been stripped from him because of modern technology, because of the MCU doing, making certain things. And it kind of bothers me because I love Spider-Man. But at the same time, the movie was enjoyable. I really enjoyed the story. I liked how everything turned out. And I want to see more. Maybe not. I digress because I guess because they de-aged him, and that is something that they're trying to keep him as a teenager, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with them having him as a teenager for a certain time frame, because heck, let's they don't know how to tell stories of an adult Spider-Man. They only know how to tell stories of a teenage Spider-Man, and they just want to just keep resetting the clock. So we'll see where they go with it. But now I want to talk a little bit more into spoilers, because I know I went on a little bit of a tangent and whether or not I enjoyed the movie. But I will say I did enjoy the movie. I think that if you're a Spider-Man fan, you should definitely watch this movie. If you're a fan of the MCU, yeah, you should definitely watch this. If you're a hardcore stickler for source material, you may or may not like this. And there are going to be things that you're going to have issue with. And that's just a thing that we geeks do. We like to, hey, like, this is the way it was supposed to happen, and this is the way it was supposed to happen. This is the way it happened in the comics. Why can't they follow that storyline? But, that's just, something to go into it. But now I want to go into the details of the spoilers. First of all, Mysterio. We know from the trailers that he's supposedly, that he comes from a multiverse. It's a ruse. He's a villain. But he does something really cool. He says that he's, that this is Earth 616, which is a nod to the comics, and he comes from Earth 833. Well, first of all, when he said that, I had a major problem with that, because Earth 833 is, first of all, that's Spider UK, which I guess is a nod to the comics, and going and saying that, like, okay, maybe Spider UK is, because they're in, Europe, so maybe that's the reason why they decided to do this with this Spider-Man movie. And then 616 saying that this is the 616 universe. No, it's not the 616 universe. There are things that I enjoy from the 616 universe that the MCU did not do, completely changed, completely altered, and I'm not happy about. And, it's, so that's not Earth 616 to me, in my eyes. So, but there are a lot of different things. I can go on a whole tangent and list about, like, different things from the MCU that never sat well with me, still don't sit well with me. The Mandarin, Whiplash, changing those villains up, changing Marvel, making the Skrulls hero, which, by the way, that's the end credits, one of the end credit sequences. We end up finding out that Nick Fury and Maria Hill are Skrulls. But they're awesome in this movie. Like, Maria Hill actually uses a bazooka. It was awesome. I was like, yes, this is great. This is cool. Turns out they're Skrulls. They're Skrulls. And they're not, and we don't even know if they're villains. Like, I'm really curious. Like Nick Fury's on a spaceship, and the Skrulls are on Earth. Does this mean that, like, are the Skrulls actually, like, villainous? Because, I mean, I have not seen Captain Marvel, and I have no intentions of seeing Captain Marvel, because I know how much it changes from the source material. But, like, it almost seems like to me, like, that they're, like, the Skrulls are pretending to be good, but they're not. If that makes any sense. And I would even venture to say that, like, when Mysterio dies at the end, but, when he does, I'm really curious. Is Mysterio really dead? Is he really dead? And something really, really cool, well, is J.K. Simmons returns. J.K. Simmons returns as J. Jonah Jameson. He does this little cameo during an end credit sequence right in front of Penn Station, which, by the way, here's something that bothered me. If you've been to Manhattan, and you know the buildings in New York City, and you see certain buildings under construction, wouldn't you expect to see them, like, finished by 2023? I know, it's 5 years, and the blip happened, but you expect certain buildings to have finished construction by then. But then again, I guess, union employees will take that long to build a building. I mean, the, Freedom Tower took 10 years. My God. But, like, during the whole time that he's swinging through New York during the end credit sequences, I'm sitting there going, like, Yeah, but that building should be done. This is, when you know New York, you know New York. So, and he's right in front of Penn Station, and they bring up on the screen, it's Jay Jonah. Well, first of all, they say, like, well, Jake Gyllenhaal, right before he dies, he tells the whole world that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. And I got a real problem with that. And then J. Jonah Jameson comes on, and it's dailybugle.net, which is a cool way of, like, bringing the Daily Bugle in. But they also wanted to show off their politics because the font used for the Daily Bugle is of a political channel. If you know what I'm talking about, if you actually see the movie, you'll know exactly what I mean and who they're referencing and why they're making J. Jonah Jameson the Daily Bugle a certain way, because they're trying to make him fit a specific political narrative. I don't normally talk politics, and I really don't like to talk politics at all on my channel, but clearly this is aimed in a certain direction, if you know what I mean. So, but when it comes out that he's Spider-Man, I'm like, no, this led to the events that made me stop reading Spider-Man comics. This literally led to the event that told me that everything I read from Spider-Man comics is gone, is now going to become part of the movies, because they wanted to pay nod to Iron Man, and that Iron Man was the first one to come out and say, screw secret identities. Secret identities are a thing of the past. In 2019, we don't need secret identities. The whole world can know that you're 16 years old and swinging around and, find out where you live, and next thing you know, the villain shoots your mom. No, I'm sorry. No, that's not cool. It's not cool. This is where secret identities are important for superheroes. The whole idea is behind a secret identity is you keep the people you love safe. And you don't want them finding out because someone can use it against them. Someone can use it against you. You don't want that found out. You don't want people trying to hurt the people you love, by finding out your secret identity. It's one thing if your best friend, and then of course the love interest, which is, does happen in the comics, but Aunt May, and then Aunt May is dating Happy. I'm okay with that. It's, I guess, because they decided to make Aunt May younger. The other thing is kind of like the way that they've portrayed Flash in these movies is that, like, he's not really the bully. They have a different kid end up being a bully in this movie. Like, Flash Thompson was supposed to be the bully that ended up turning his friend, then ended up losing his legs, and ended up becoming Venom, for a short stint when Eddie Brock was, in a cancer bed. I know my Spider-Man comics, so, like, these are things that, like, when you know the stories behind the comics, and I know, it's a different universe, and I go, I'm sorry, but you're adapting the comics. If you can't respect the source material, then you're just going to anger, people who know the story. For the average everyday moviegoer, this is a pretty good Spider-Man movie. It's enjoyable. The villain is, is believable. The effects they use on him are really cool. The whole, like, Mysterio, like, the fish globe, the way they use it, and how they use drones and everything. I thought that was pretty cool. I thought that was really, really neat. Like, how, like, they ended up making him a special effects. I also like how it ties into the MCU. All the people who used to work for Tony Stark, who either got fired or worked for the villain that worked with, that worked at Stark Enterprises, all end up, part of Mysterio's gang, and he's doing his thing. So maybe, he actually created an illusion and didn't really die. That's kind of like the thing about this. So, like, I think that Mysterio is still alive, but I don't like the idea that Spider-Man's identity is now out to the world. One of the things that was neat about Spider-Man Homecoming was that, like, it was still kept secret. Vulture found out his identity and didn't even reveal it to the other villains in prison. And I thought that was a cool thing to do in the movie, but now this blows everything out of the water. This is like, I don't even want to go there. I don't even want to see the movie now. I don't want to see the next movie. I don't want to see the next Spider-Man movie. I don't want to see the next, like, anything to do with it, because you've already outed his identity. I don't know where he go with that. And you want to know something, like I already had a problem with them trying to say, like, okay, well, Michelle is not Mary Jane. You're right, it's not, but it's still MJ, and it's still a representation of MJ. It's kind of like a little bit of too much of a change right there. Do I think they have chemistry together? Yeah, sure. But you know, I'm kind of like against you know, I'm just kind of against like that, you know, changing of the character just to change a character. You want her to just be Michelle and just be Spider-Man's girlfriend in the MCU, and her name be Michelle. Fine, I'm okay with that. Don't call her MJ. She's not MJ. Like, it's just, it is what it is. Like, but I don't really care. I don't really dig it. I don't. And I'm okay. Like I said, like they did some really cool things together, and I also like the chemistry they have together on screen. That's fine. It just doesn't mesh well to me that you're trying to like make this a particular representation of the character when it's not a representation of that character. It's somebody else who is playing a character and you're slapping a name on it. And so it's like that character in name only. So that's just kind of like my take on it. And like I said, I'm okay with the love interest, just not okay with the name slap. So another thing that I kind of was bothered by, and this is like the last thing, I'm just kind of giving you like my negative thoughts on it, is the quips. There was no spider quips. And I had a problem with no spider quips. You have to have quips with Spider-Man. It's something that Andrew Garfield got right. Tobey Maguire never did, because he was just too busy like swinging and brooding over the, you know, the gargoyles on the Chrysler Building. But this Spider-Man, like, he's so awkward, and because everybody already talks to him, he doesn't quip. He isn't sitting there going like, wait till you see this, Mysterio. Like, he doesn't do that. There is none of that. It's just him kind of swinging around. It's that same problem I had with Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, is, you know, no quipping. It's something that like his character did in the comics. It's something that even Spider-Man Homecoming did, and did pretty well. Like, that this movie just didn't have. It almost felt like this movie was a backtread. It was trying to transform Spider-Man into Iron Man. You know, at the end of Homecoming, he was like, I don't want to be Iron Man. And in this movie, he's kind of like, now I'm pretty much, I am Spider Iron Man. And that's literally what he is. Like, he's not Spider-Man, he's Spider Iron Man. Like, they don't necessarily say that in the movie, but you understand what I mean. Like, it's just kind of like, he has all the gadgets, he has all the, you know, the technology, he has it all at his disposal, that he's pretty much Iron Man with a Spider-Man costume and Spider-Man powers. So that's where they went with this. And I guess to me it feels like, it's like, all right, this is the epilogue, this is like where you want to go with it, fine. I'm not interested. I'm sorry, I'm just not interested. But we'll see where they go with it. Again, I enjoyed the movie. I thought at the end of the day, it was okay. It was decent. The story itself was a good Spider-Man movie, I guess. Yeah, it's a good Spider-Man movie. I guess a good MCU movie. Like, it still had the humor. It still was fun. Still enjoyable. A lot of things I didn't care for, but it's just like maybe I'm being a little bit too nitpicky, but heck, you know what? That's what a review is for. If we can't talk, we can talk about the good stuff, we can talk about the bad stuff, and I obviously have talked about the nerdy stuff. So I want to know what you guys think. Did you guys see Spider-Man Far From Home? And what did you think? Did you think it was a great Spider-Man movie? Did you think it was a good movie? Did you think it was a good movie that had a lot of negative aspects to it? Or did you think it was a terrible movie? I want to know what you guys think. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you like this video and this review, be sure to thumbs up and subscribe. Check out my other videos as well. Be sure to check out my main channel if you want to hear about Transformers stuff. I've got more stuff down the pipeline for both channels, so stay tuned for all that. And as always, until next time, till all are one.